Yeah. Hello, hi, the guy. It's your favorite four-eyed guy. And today we're to be with a very special young woman. Nawan Kaza for all the things that she's introduced me to with regards to art. I've met so many interesting people going to the event. It's a Adi organizing thing, and I've learned to believe in my own creativity by seeing her just pursuing the total Anirata. So anyway, this is Sasta. Sasta, please introduce yourself and a little of what you do to the people.
Hey everyone, my name is Sasta Kuppan. I am the director and poetry curator at Chasing Dreams Publishing. I immerse myself in the arts in terms of writing, in terms of events management with regards to poetry and music and creativity and all things you. So I'm immersed here in South Africa, and I'm a portiller through the poetry scene. So that's me in a nutshell.
Cool stuff. Why poetry? What drew you to poetry or just writing?
As a child, I always felt that was my most honest method of expressing myself. Words often failed me, and ears were never there to listen, so the pages always kept me safe and kept me heard.
Okay, cool. What would you say is one of your favorite books, right? Or let's say your favorite poetry growing up?
I don't think I read very much poetry when I was little, for the basis that I think the syllabus kept it very rigid in terms of traditional poetry. But as I got older, I realized that people have a different means of expressing themselves when the rules are taken away or pulled apart. So contemporary poetry kind of drew me in my latter years. But as a reader, and this may sound silly, but Harry Potter was a really big part of my journey based on the fact that it was built in a world based on self-discovery, the inner child, prejudice, camaraderie. There were so many aspects that replicated real life in the fantasy world that shed a light on really difficult topics to discuss in a way that was more relatable. But that being said, also as the author J.K. Rowling experienced so many rejections, 12 rejections before the 13th publishing house decided to take her on, which is it's a ridiculous thing to think of today considering what a big conglomerate it is. And she, through that rejection, she persevered to a point where she became the first billionaire as an author. So that was a spectacular example of wealth creation, but also not giving up on the dream.
Cool stuff. Most people have role models or influences growing up when it comes to entrepreneurship. Do you think, or do you have any of your own people that you looked up to, and said to yourself, "Wow, I'd like to build a company similar to this, or similar to what this person has created"?
If I must be honest, there was no one that I really looked up to say that I could be like this person or experienced mentorship to that degree, because I feel like people have their own unique form of expression, and it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of solution depending on what you decide is your vocation, or you find is your vocation in life. So I kind of observed people later in life and found that the more I discovered about myself, the people that I needed along my journey gravitated towards me and I to them.
That's beautiful. So the importance of the right exposure growing up. How do you feel about that? Do you have certain exposures that kind of propelled you to this kind of career that you are in right now? And what are those?
So I think it was more contrasting effect rather than people in my life compelling me to be this version of Sasta. Reason being, I grew up in a home where one side of the family had a poverty mentality, meaning they always operated out of the space of fear, or from a modus operandi of fear. So even if things were in surplus, it always felt like there was never enough. And the other half of the family operated from a space of I call it reckless abundance. So where it's complete disregard for stability and growth. So there was a deep imbalance, and I had these two examples running parallel to me, and I was in the middle, and I needed to make a decision. What is good for me? But that being said, as I grew up, so I went to it wasn't a great high school. It was notorious for the caliber of students that attended and the incidences that came with it. However, walking the hallways, you realize there were these little nuggets of potential in people that went unseen and uncultivated. There was a term that they used at our school. It was sneeman. So the sneeman was a salesperson, and the sneeman was known for whatever cigarette was in rotation. That person was going to hook you up, right, for R2. But on the other hand, there were people who didn't smoke, or those who wanted to cover up the smell and that sort of thing. And then the lollipop business began. So for the same price, you targeted two markets. And those are things you kind of just walk past, never acknowledge. But in hindsight, again, entrepreneurship on such a menial level actually kept these people going, paid for their taxi fare, paid for their food every day, and that was something admirable for me to take away from that experience.
Well, I never looked at it like that, because I've had those experiences as well in my high school years.
Yeah.
I actually had a close friend. At some point myself, I was selling cigarettes. So now is the slave man.
Yes.
But yeah, okay, cool stuff. Taking L's, losing is a big part of winning. And what would you say the losses that have helped you see things differently with regards to like your journey towards your wealth creation, and how you overcome and took lessons from those losses?
So, I was thinking about this a lot when I was thinking about the grieving process. How grieving doesn't just mean you are experiencing the full emotions of losing a person. It could also be losing a job, losing a purpose. There are many ways that we grieve. And I think ultimately, when everything comes full circle, you come to a place of acceptance. And when you're in a place of acceptance, you realize there's a lesson in everything. So maybe an unpopular opinion depending on where in the grief cycle you were at. But I think that I've always been able to bounce back in a sense that I had this belief, or this constant thing I used to say to myself, that it's okay to start again. Somebody brought it up lately, where I firmly believe that is important, because every day is a new opportunity and you are a different person now because of the experience. Sometimes solidifying yourself in that belief that you can always start again means you're always starting again. You're always hitting the reset button. It means you're not creating opportunities for you to build stability, to build a foundation. So whether you get to a point where you say, I've learned everything I needed to learn from this process of growth and failure, and understand that I'm never going to always be in a success mindset or a success environment. But now that I have these lessons, it's my foundation, it's something that I'm growing on top of and not losing myself to.
Thank you very much for that. Mental health is an important part of just maintaining your happiness, or just being motivated to just keep going, right? But it's such a part of our health that we don't focus on. I don't know a lot of people who I know personally who go for counseling and go for therapy, or find healthy ways to deal with their mental issues or mental challenges. What would you say is your mental health tips to maintain good health?
So firstly, touching on the opening line where people are not really focusing much on it, and that's because there's such a big stigma when it comes to discussing the fact that it's okay to not be okay, when it comes to your culture, to your workspace, to your gender even. All of these things play a role in how open are you to have a conversation about it. And I think social media is kind of broadening that platform for people to have more conversations that are conducive to success and long-term healing over time. So for me, it's realizing that I can't do everything, but the things that I do it well. And then again, in light of failure, be more accepting of myself. I think that it's very easy for us to hold space for other people to accommodate their flaws, but we're very hard on ourselves. So take a step back and hold space for yourself. I meditate a lot. That kind of keeps me in focus, keeps my ish together. Sometimes it's important to just hit the reset button. What else do I do? On a frequent basis, I learn new skills to help me better understand myself. And once I work on the healing on an intricate level within myself, I'm able to help other people. So it's kind of a give and take when it comes to mental health, because starting the conversation as well and saying that you're not okay is so important, because a lot of people aren't capable of reading the room, in a sense that you may be very intuitive to other people's needs and they may not be the same way to you, but not because of a lack of care or whatever it may be. It's just because sometimes it's the power of communication changes everything. If you speak up about it, something can go into motion to change, to help you. And I think that I think it's about also not being able to, as you said, people are not really going, you don't know people that often go to therapy or speak about going to therapy because there's that stigma behind it, but also finding people that you can relate to help you through the process. Do you need somebody who's more religiously inclined? Do you need somebody who shares the same demographic as you? Is it somebody that needs to be more academically knowledgeable? What are your needs? And then the thing is that there are no, what do you call them, pamphlets or whatever that say that you can tick in the boxes and say this is what I need and then you will be catered to. So I think that it's an ongoing conversation and people are kind of coming into that, finding there are different ways, and it doesn't always have to be a clinical way. It could just be a good support system in the home space and your friend circle and in the poetry space as well,
Find the books that you read, because like people don't shun upon like self-help books. Like, I think the problem with self-help books, it might be that people don't do the work. They just think reading is enough, and they just go through the content and like, oh, okay, I understand. But the work that is within it, they don't take. Let's get into the next question. I'm a fan of good relationships, maintaining good relationships. How do you maintain your good relationships in business and in just life?
So I think that the human resource is the most invaluable resource, and it's something that's deeply overlooked, especially in service spaces, because there's this idea that people are replaceable. Before I was immersed in this world, I was in hospitality, and that's very frontline, very people-centric. And in hospitality and in retail, you'll see that there's a high rotation of staff, but that's because there's no investment and no reward that's on an equal level. That's conducive to a meaningful life. So with me, I think it's about how I maintain my relationships and keep in contact. When I know there's something that is that could assist somebody else along the process, I make sure that they get connected. And it's not always about gain, it's about it's reciprocation, it's about maintaining communication and understanding that this person is of value. So what do you do to show them their value? We all have our different love languages, but I think more than anything it's about communication, so maintaining communication. That's in my family life and in business.
Alright, good stuff. Paying dues. What does your paying dues look like? What does to have a publishing company? What dues have you had to pay?
Learning. Like I said, this wasn't something I studied for. I got into this business by chance and by opportunity, and I've been learning on the ground ever since. So I think maintaining that mentality of be a student of life, and as cliche as that may seem, we truly are learning every single day, and I think that's something I'm doing on a daily basis in the publishing industry, because no two projects are alike, no two clients are alike, no two needs are alike. So always learning. And there's an interesting segment of Khalil Gibran's The Prophet where they spoke about teaching, and what he, in a nutshell, without butchering the quote, he basically says that there's nothing a teacher can give to you in terms of knowledge that is not laying dormant already within you. So these people and these tools that we pick up along the way are actually just there to unlock the parts of us that are already within us. So they help propel that side of us that needs to shine in that moment.
You're leading nicely into the next question. what books have you read that have shaped your perspective on life or your goals?
So earlier on I mentioned Harry Potter being that balance between discovering self and speaking about social issues, and then also from a business perspective taking it out of that world and saying resilience takes you far. Another one is Essentialism by a gentleman named Greg McCrew. I may be saying his name terribly, so it's an Irish name. And it basically talks about drowning out the noise in the sense that focus on what's necessary in this life and then put everything else in the back foot, because oftentimes we prioritize everything and don't make time for what's essential. So when it comes down to a priority list, are you putting yourself first? If apart from business, are you putting yourself first to make sure that you're in a good space before you can operate in the world? And just drowning out the noise and finding your focus again. So it's coming back down to the basics, bringing everything down to minimalism and starting from there, and realizing that your time and your talents are energy, and how are you putting that into the world and what are you getting in return. And it's not a thing of like capitalizing on skill sets or monetizing everything you do. It's about understanding that there needs to be that balance. And this is why like in spirituality, I mean, when you're starting off small businesses, we all often struggle to understand our worth and ask for what we're worth, because we don't think that we match up to anybody else who may be providing the same service. And it's just, again, coming back to the basics and understanding that yes, you do need money to survive, but it's a fair exchange of you're offering something of value, they're giving something of value in exchange. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Your definition of wealth.
So, like I was saying earlier, that I gave us a lot of thought, because wealth means so many things to different people. It's not only money. We are wealthy in relationships, we are wealthy in experience. So my definition is, we are wealthy when we weed out the trivial and focus on what is vital for an impactful and meaningful life. That's my definition of wealth.
That's a beautiful definition. And I'll look back at this recording and really delve into it deeper and understand it better for myself. Some of your favorite wealth creators, just give us some names.
So an interesting, I'm again a person that's really in the public eye is Elon Musk, and I just admire the way that he is. He's got his fingers in many pots in a sense that he started with Zip2, which is basically creating an online presence for small businesses on the internet. Back when the phone book was basically your go-to. Then moving to PayPal, moving to Tesla, and then all the way to Mars. Yeah. So I think that my belief system is that the sky's really not the limit.
Not the limit anymore. Elon has proved us wrong about that.
No, but that's the thing. So we all have these unique gifts and unique ways of delivering them to humanity, and we're not all going to be Elon Musk, but we all have something special within us to offer the world. So
I trust and believe that.
Yeah. So he's the one person.
Thank you very much for joining us. I enjoyed this thoroughly. I'm sure the people that are going to be watching this will be enjoying it thoroughly as well. Thank you so much for your wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much for your time and the talent that you keep sharing with all of us. Keep doing that, and we are here to support all of that. And that's a wrap. Like they say, kokasiaka suikweta, and I'd like to add ipele nya into pen. Sharp.